The CDC has been busted for tracking millions of cell phones under the guise of COVID protection. But it wasn't. Let's get right into it. This report from Vice reads, CDC tracked millions of phones to see if Americans followed COVID lockdown orders. Newly released documents showed the CDC planned to use phone location data to monitor schools, churches, and wanted to use that data for many non-COVID-19 purposes too. The Centers of Disease Control and Prevention bought access to location data harvested from tens of millions of phones in the United States to perform analysis of compliance with curfews, track patterns of people visiting K-12 schools, and specifically monitor the effectiveness of policy in the Navajo Nation. According to the CDC documents by Motherboard, the documents also showed that although the CDC used COVID-19 as a reason to buy access to the data more quickly, it intended to use it for more general CDC purposes. Location data is information on a device's location sourced from the phone, which can then show where a person lives, works, and where they went. The sort of data the CDC bought was aggregated, meaning it was designed to follow trends that emerge from the movements of groups of people. But researchers have repeatedly raised concerns with how location data can be de-anonymized and used to track specific people. The documents reveal the expansive plan the CDC had last year to use location data from a highly controversial data broker, SafeGraph, the company the CDC paid $420,000 for access to 1 year of data. Includes Peter Thiel and former head of Saudi intelligence among its investors. Google banned the company from the Play Store in June. The CDC used the data for monitoring curfews, with the document saying that SafeGraph's data had been critical for ongoing response efforts, such as hourly monitoring of activity in curfew zones or detailed counts of visits to participating pharmacies for vaccine monitoring. Zach Edwards, a cybersecurity researcher who closely follows the data marketplace, told Motherboard in an online chat after receiving the document, the CDC seems to have purposefully created an open-ended list of use cases, which included monitoring curfews, neighbor-to-neighbor visits, visits to churches, schools, and pharmacies, and also a variety of analysis, which this data specifically focused on violence. Motherboard obtained the documents through a Freedom of Information Act. The documents contain a long list of what the CDC describes as 21 different potential CDC cases for data. They include track patterns of those visiting K-12 schools, examination of the correlation of mobility pattern data, examination of the effectiveness of public policy on the Navajo Nation specifically. At the start of the pandemic, cell phone data location was seen as a potentially useful tool. Multiple media organizations, including the New York Times, used location data provided by companies in the industry to show where people were traveling to once lockdown started to lift, or highlight the poorer communities were unable to shelter in place as much as richer ones. The procurement documents say that this is an urgent COVID-19 PR and asks for the purchase to be expedited. But some of the use cases are not explicitly linked to the COVID-19 pandemic. One reads, research points of interest for physical activity and chronic disease prevention such as visit to parks, gyms, or weight management businesses. Another section of the document elaborates on the location data's use for non-COVID-19 related programs. CDC also plans to use mobility data and services acquired through the acquisition to support non-COVID-19 programmatic areas and public health priorities across the agency, including but not limited to travel to parks and green spaces, physical activity, and mode of travel. The population migration before, during, and after natural diseases, it reads. Google banned SafeGraph from its Google Play Store in June. This meant that any Play Store developers using SafeGraph's code had to remove it from their apps or face having their app removed from the store. It's not entirely clear how effective this ban has been. SafeGraph has previously said it obtains location data via Veriset, a spin-off company which interfaces with app developers. Some of the most insane stuff that ever happened in the world, if you ask me. And at first we were all just conspiracy theorists, right? Keep fighting for the truth.